All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to WNIJ's Valentine's version of Poetically Yours Live. I'm your host, Yvonne Booz. Tonight's poetry is going to be all about love. This format will be a little different from our past ones, where you heard lots of conversation and a little bit of poetry. Tonight, you hear lots of poetry sprinkled with a little bit of conversation. But first, let me introduce our guests. I'll start with James Morehead. James is the poet laureate of Dublin, California. How are you doing today, James?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here with all these wonderful poets.
You're missing all the snow we have out here in Chicago.
Yeah, I'll pretend I've been to Chicago and it's a wonderful city. My parents lived there many years, so I can appreciate the weather and the beauty and the sun of California all at the same time.
Well, thank you for that. Next, I want to introduce Aurora's Poet Laureate, Karen Flick Christensen. Good evening, Karen. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Next up, we have Quentin Johnson. Now, Quentin is having some technical difficulties with his video, but his voice is soothing. So I think we'll go ahead and let him slide on that. How are you today, Quentin?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here with all of you tonight.
Glad you made it out of the snow. Next, I want to introduce spoken word artist and Rockford native, Christopher D. Sims. Hey, Christopher.
Hey, what's good?
Glad that you're here with us tonight. And also joining us, we have Poetically Yours contributors, Carol Alphas. Hi, Carol.
Hi, so happy to be here with the rest of you tonight.
And we have Katza Roman. How you doing, Katza?
Good. How are you doing?
I am well. All right, now that we got that out the way, we're going to get started. Now, I know most of you guys are used to hearing my voice every week introducing someone else's poem, but tonight I wanted to show some love and share some of my own poetry with you guys. So I am going to kick off tonight's poetry hour with a poem that I wrote called Crumbs. Now, I do not know what inspired this poem, so I don't want you guys to read too much into it. But when I think about Valentine's Day and I think about love, I know a lot of times you think about the good stuff. Well, I am starting off with a poem that's not so good. All right, so this is called Crumbs. Our love was like a four-course meal. We started out with an appetizer, our first date. I remember us walking down the street, you putting me on the inside, saying that's what a gentleman is supposed to do. That didn't satisfy me, only left me wanting more. Next, our phone conversations. They started out like hot soup, then turned into cold salad. But we weren't finished. We stayed for the main course, time spent together. Our arguments felt like rubbery steak, but we kept eating. I introduced you to my friends and family. We were the perfect arrangement. And let's not forget about dessert, that sweet dessert. The weekend getaways at your place plays in my mind over and over. Your lips were strawberries and whipped cream. I haven't tasted those kisses in a while. And now we sit in disbelief that everything is gone. We sit. As the waiter tells us the place is closing in 10 minutes, we sit looking at our plates, staring at our unwanted leftovers, staring at our crumbs. All right, so that is my contribution to tonight's Poetically Yours, and I'm going to leave it at that. We're going to kick it off next with James Morehead. Now, like I said, poetry isn't always sunshine and roses. And before James get into his poetry, or at least one of his poems tonight, I want him to talk more about that when it comes to poetry and how some people think poetry has to be glitter and gold.
Absolutely. So I was very fortunate in 10th grade to have a wonderful creative writing teacher who opened up the world of poetry in a way that I never had before. I think there's a lot of stereotypes about poetry that are very frustrating and persistent. On one end of the spectrum, you have poetry that's viewed as impenetrable, maybe because it's dated, maybe because it uses hard language, maybe because it has lots of references to things that you may not be familiar with. And you read those poems and it makes you feel dumb, and that's not fun. On the other end of the spectrum, you have poetry that serves a specific purpose, and greeting card poetry. And I don't want to call that bad. It is poetic in a sense, but I wouldn't necessarily call it art, and it's not trying to be art. So if your perception of poetry is at either end of that spectrum, what you're missing is this wonderfully beautiful spectrum in the middle, that poetry can be so many different things. You know, poetry can be everything that we were blessed to hear during the halftime of the Super Bowl. Poetry can be Amanda Gorman at the inauguration. Poetry can be E. E. Cummings without any punctuation or capitalization. Poetry can be A. E. Stallings with wonderfully complex and intricate with references to Greek mythology. Poetry can be anything in between. And I guarantee that every single person listening to this has poetry that they love. They may not have heard it yet, but that there's poetry that they love. And I know that from my own first book, where I try to be poetry that's more, I guess, accessible, kind of like Billy Collins, that I've had people read my book and say, wow, I never realized I liked poetry. And certainly anyone who listens to music has heard lots of beautiful poetry. Not all songs are beautiful poems. They're beautiful songs with acceptable lyrics, but there are also, you know, whether it's, someone like, I'm trying to remember the band. There's a band that my younger daughter is totally into that is beautiful poetry that's very modern, and then poetry from the 60s and everything in between. So I'd say that if your assumption is you don't like poetry, keep reading poetry, because the poems that you love are out there. You just haven't read them yet.
Yeah.
So that's been my view of poetry as a spectrum, and poetry gets a bad rap because you may have only heard one end of the spectrum.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of us dealt with that growing up as we were writing, wanting people to listen to our poems. And, our family members are like, really don't care. But all right, James, without further ado, I'm going to let you go ahead and go over your first poem with us tonight.
Sure. This is a new poem, unpublished, being read here for the first time. How I Found You. First, you were silhouetted in bark, eerie and serene, while over your imagined shoulder the Golden Gate glowed, lit by midsummer sun. Then I followed your slender finger toward a menagerie in the sky, a horse galloping in cirrus, cumulus crafted elephant tusks, and fog flowing like sun-bleached curls. We stopped for cappuccinos, and floating in the foam, for an instant, an image replaced the signature heart. Startled, I whisked it away. Strolling the beach, we searched for sea glass while tides painted, then erased in fading blacks and shifting grays, mountain-like ridges in twilight. That night, watching you sleep, your lips curved in a subtle smile, I saw us holding hands while grandchildren played at our feet. As morning broke and sun poured in to repaint the shadows, I held my breath until the periodolia fled. Thank you.
That
Very
was
nice.
wonderful.
Very nice. Yeah. And I would agree with the things that James said. And I think your poem, James, really reflects that people may be put off by poetry because they haven't read things that they can relate to. And so, for you describing a very personal experience and weaving all those images that I could see in my mind while you were reading, makes that really, really accessible poetry.
Thank you, Karen. So how about you go ahead and go with your first poem?
Oh, okay. This is, I think there's a little bit of irony in this poem, so maybe you want to listen to that. I wrote it about 25 years ago. I was having lunch with a person who was soon to be my ex-husband. And I was inspired by seeing some elderly people that were holding each other up. It was a couple that was walking, and they were walking up the path to the restaurant. We were sitting outdoors, and my ex and I were just pretending to be civil to each other. And I'm guessing many of you know exactly what that feels like. The poem is called The Man and the Woman. The man and the woman inched along the path. I'm sure you saw them, both so frail, so slight. A light wind would have easily lifted them off the ground. Yet they supported each other. She held his arm. He trembled as they walked. Neither step was firm or sure. I imagined their story. They'd probably done their share of struggling, will against will, words against words, the unnoticed moments, gestures, acts that swirl together, describe, define, create a life. We sat and stroked ourselves, shot forth witty comments, flashes of brilliance, spots of excitement, accomplishments, or so we thought. How smart, how clever, how bright we are. The man and the woman inched along the path.
Oh man, that was powerful. And like you said, a lot of us could probably relate to that. So Karen, I want to ask this question. At what point do you think people need to realize, okay, I love this person, but it's time to let it go?
Yeah, that's a good question as it relates to this poem, because that person was absolutely the love of my life. And it was very sad to me when the relationship was floundering. But I realized that I was the one doing all the work to hold that together. And I think that's not a good thing for anyone to do in any aspect of your life. If you're working so hard that you can't even enjoy what it is that's going on, you need to give yourself permission to end it, to break away.
I bet our listeners didn't think that we get love advice here during this Poetically Yours Live. So we got you covered.
Karen, I think you did a really interesting thing that poetry is really good at. You juxtaposed two different pictures of relationships, and that couple, they had worn together, and they were soft, but they were strong. And you and your soon-to-be ex, it was almost a brittle depiction. And it was very powerful.
Thank you for being so vulnerable, Karen.
Yeah.
And just one other comment I want to make. I wrote that when I was in the midst of this breakup, and that helps a lot.
Oh, yes.
I'm guessing that, all of us here would agree that one of the best ways to deal with things that are going on in your life that are hard is to write about them.
Totally. Yeah, it's it's therapy for yourself, coaching
Right.
yourself, therapy, clearing your mind, getting out of that whole thing. Yeah, it's powerful.
I know, and love poems were some of the first poems I started writing, and my auntie said, no, life is more about there's more to life than just love poems. But I have to say, those are my favorite. Those are the easiest for me to write. All right, Carol, let's hear what you have for us tonight.
Well, your first love is always really special. And I fell in love when I was 10 years old with a character from a book. And
when you say 10 years old, my face was like, wait.
Now, I didn't write this when I was 10 years old. I fell in love when I was 10, with a character from a book. And so this poem is called Girl Crush. I was only 10 when we met, but I adored you from the get-go. You were so far out of my league, 8 years older, smart, determined, and resourceful, not to mention pretty, fashionable, very popular. River Heights' own Titian-haired girl sleuth, Nancy Drew. I read all of your adventures, imagining myself one of your steadfast chums, riding along in your snappy blue roadster to Redgate Farm, Lilac Inn, or Blackwood Hall, following leads and deciphering clues in the dogged pursuit of truth and justice. Along the way, you encountered enough PG-rated peril to make my preteen heart quail, but your cool-headed, quick thinking in the face of danger just made me love you more. How I admired your grit, your gumption, and the way you casually wore your independence like a comfortable sweater. There seemed to be no skill you couldn't master, from horseback riding to sailing, skydiving, and yes, even playing the bagpipes. For 3 years, I followed you from one mystery to the next, a besotted satellite orbiting your bright star. I always knew you were too good to be true. But in spite of your annoyingly unfailing perfection in all of your endeavors and lack of typical teen girl afflictions. Did you never get zits or split ends or cramps? There will always be a warm spot in my heart for you. Even now, if you pulled up to my house in your zippy blue roadster, I would hop right in.
Oh, I love that.
It's an entertaining poem and beautiful how you read it.
Yep.
Thank you.
And brings
It
back
was
a
fun
lot
to
of
write.
it brings back a lot of good memories. Those were great books. In fact, I've got a friend who's got her entire set from when she was a kid, and she refuses to part with them. So,
Wow.
It's
yeah.
like the Hardy Boy mysteries I thought of when you were reading that poem, and I got heavy into some Hardy Boy mysteries early on in my reading it. Yeah, very interesting reading and always entertaining.
Yeah, and they just carry you away, don't they? Yeah, I totally wanted to be one of her friends.
That's what I love about poetry. You can write about anything. Like,
Mhm.
who would have thought you would read a book and decide, you know what, this is worth a poem?
50 years
Lovely,
later.
lovely. All right, Katsa, it's your time to shine, dear.
Oh, thank you. So, this poem I wrote for my husband. I was reading an article on the BBC News that they found these ancient skeletons that were like buried together in an embrace. And you can see in one of them, I don't know if it was the girl or the boy, but they were like in the early 20s. And she just looks like she has like a smile on her face. Even though she's skeletal remains, you could just see the love between the two of them that they had. So this one is in honor of my husband of 13 years, Jonathan. My wonderful husband of 13 glorious years. If I could only number the memories that ended in tears. Tears not of sadness, though, but of pure bliss in the times we bestowed. My, how I can feel my heart glow when you are near, my dear. If every star in heaven marked a special moment that we shared, the cosmos would expand forever without ever a care. You stood by me in sickness and in health, and in the very most of health, wealth. You've honored those vows we pledged not too long ago. When death is upon us, I only wish to hold you forever next to me. So one day our love will be retold. The future will make tales of these people who lived so very long ago, but our love will be remembered in the stories of once upon a time ago.
Oh, wow, 13 years. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I have to ask, are all your poems about your husband, are they the happy ones?
Most of my poems are actually pretty dark. I wrote them during a bout of depression, and I just wanted to try to come to terms with a lot of what I was going through. So one of my books is really dark, but the next one I'm working on, the Book of Peace, that one's more about just finding acceptance, and those are a little bit more happier.
Now, can you tell me how writing helped you with that period of this depression?
Definitely, it was like now when I go back and read what I wrote when I was depressed, I'm understanding how I felt. Because when I was depressed, I didn't really know it. I was so good at hiding emotions. Like I just didn't even want to deal with it. And I thought, well, if I push these emotions away for a rainy day with the assumption that rainy day will never come, then I'll deal with it another time. But now I go back and read, I'm like, wow, I was really, really depressed, and that's not healthy. So it made me go back now and realize like I should have talked more, but writing definitely helped me understand how I was feeling during that time.
Well, I'm glad you made it through that time, and hopefully you're an inspiration for others who might be watching tonight. All right, Quentin, I know we can't see your face, but I can't wait to hear your poem. What do you have for us tonight?
Tonight I am going to read an older poem too. This was written in 1988. So we're 34 years on. It was written for my fiance at the time, who's my now wife. We were attending different colleges at that point. So I just had written a series of poems for her. This one is called Black Star Beckoning. Beauty beguiled me, 'twas fresh and anew. Black star of life shone with brightest hue. In dark onyx eyes, A love came a fire, black star of love, burn with desire. Her essence bound in Sheba's grace. Black star, hold me in your embrace. In communion she joins with innocence so bright. Black star of passion, be mine tonight. Ebony gold, please shine on my life.
That was a lovely poem, Quentin. I have to ask, what was your wife's thoughts after she heard that poem?
Yeah, I'm trying to just bring back my memories. I mean, you know, we're young, 20 something odd, young adults, college kids. At that point, we'd probably been engaged for a couple of years. And, you know, I know she really was pretty joyful about it. And I think just to celebrate, you know, I don't think I'd written a poem directly for her at that point, but something to help celebrate her life, celebrate her inspiration and how she made me feel, and making me happy. This made her happy.
I wonder, are guys still doing that these days?
Probably so.
Writing love poems?
Yeah.
Well,
Christopher, James, you guys
yeah,
still writing
I
love
wrote
poems?
a poem for which I had hand delivered on our wedding morning when I wasn't allowed to see my wife because can't see her until she's in her dress. So yeah, wrote a poem for that, and then one more. I was debating. I had two poems, one of which I'll read later. One was I at an open mic I surprised on her birthday by reading this poem about her beauty. So yeah, I think so.
Oh,
Yeah.
romance is still alive.
It's good to know. Yeah.
Don't you think it's easier sometimes to write how you feel than to say how you feel?
Yes.
I think sometimes it is, yeah.
You can perfect every word and take the time to edit and revise, and yes, it's hard to do that
Exactly.
when you're speaking in live. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. All right, Christopher, I know spoken word is your thing, so I can't
Okay.
wait to hear what you have for us. Go ahead and give us a little taste of what you have.
Yeah, you know, definitely. Even if I'm not in love at the moment, I'll find something to write in regards to love and romance and all those things. And they're definitely a huge. Those elements are huge in regards to my thinking and how I interact with people and how I show love back to people. So even when women might not think men are still writing love poems, we definitely are, and or we're lining some up to write. So yeah, this
Uh,
piece is called "I Met Her at a Bookstore," and it's probably my ultimate love poem. And I'm all about creating pictures and being simple at the same time. So I met her at a bookstore, and this is for all the folks in Rockford who have requested this poem many a times when they've seen me on stage. I met her at a bookstore amidst the aroma of coffee, laughter, and conversation. Somehow our eyes met. We began to admire and respect one another's presence. In essence, I considered at first glance a chance for my soul's salvation. Clearest to me was the sunshine of her smile and the beauty of her dimpled cheeks, which caused me to stumble over my speech. From time to time, you see her laughter was liquid upon the jazz that played lightly in the cafe. I, Christopher Donshell Sims, couldn't have had a better day. She saw me sipping green tea serenely, wanted to meet me. Turns out that she beat me to the last copy of Sister Soldiers, the coldest winter ever, you see. That's how we met. Her hand touched mine, and at a brief moment in time, we seemed to marry one another. I found myself smothered under the glory of her greatness, singing silently in the blanketing bliss of love's unpredictable beauty. I met her at a bookstore. I met her at a bookstore. I met her at a bookstore. My life has changed forevermore. And that's
Very
it.
nice. Oh, I like that. Very good.
Thank
how-
you.
I think that reflects so many people's fantasies, which is that you're going to meet somebody where your souls connect because you're doing something that you really love, like hanging out in a bookstore, or drinking tea or drinking coffee. You know, that it's not an artificial setting. It's truly, truly deep and genuine and authentic.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Totally agree. And I wrote that poem in a bookstore, so
Oh,
Ah,
okay.
had the perfect setting.
Yeah.
Now,
Abs-
Christopher, how often have you been able to get out and do spoken word with this pandemic? I know things have been starting to pick up in the last year or so.
Very little actually, and yeah, it's like, man, where is the live spoken word scene? Unless you're somewhere, you're down in the South, maybe Atlanta or Memphis or maybe somewhere Birmingham, but up north, Midwest, you don't see a lot of it happening. So actually, my most recent spoken word performance was actually I was in a church service with the Reverend David Breeden, who's the minister of First Unitarian Society. So it was me and him doing an exchange of spoken word or poetry. But for a live audience, it's been not many opportunities, and I miss it because I'm such a stage poet.
Yeah, yeah. I can't wait till things get back to normal. I know you guys can't wait. Maybe we could do a poetically yours live, like really live and not
Oh,
Facebook
that would
live.
be
oh,
very
wouldn't that
fun.
be nice?
That
That's
would
what
be
I'm
very,
waiting for. All right,
yeah.
guys. So we've gotten through the first set of poems. And like I said, I won't hog things up, so I won't do another one. So we'll start the rotation over. But before I do that, I just want to take a pause and see how everyone's feeling. Are you guys more in love, out of love? What's going on?
I'm very much in love with my wife, and we're like 30 plus years. So we've been married a long time. And my dad said something very insightful. My parents have been married more than 50 years. My wife's parents more than 50 years, and it's um, you decide to be married, and that's a decision. It's a choice, and there are situations where the choice has to change, but it's something that you know it's a decision, it's a choice. It's not something that just because you're madly in love from day one. There's a whole bunch of good years, good days, bad days, and you got to
Mhm.
grind through and push your way through the balance. And if they never become good again, then there are points where you have to cut your losses. But thankfully, I haven't had to. My wife and I are past that point, I think, at this point. So hopefully, knock on wood, I'm certainly not going to do anything to change it.
Oh yeah. Well, that's wonderful advice. So let's go ahead and have you start with your next poem.
Sure. So I'm going to take this from my book, my debut book, Canvas. The first poem was about my wife and images around things that we'd experienced, and this one is about friendship. I think friendship can be very powerful too. So this is written during the height of the pandemic back in 2020, and a friend of mine said this short phrase, and it rang in my ears at the time. By the ocean, awoken again, reaching out in darkness. Heart racing from the stress dreams, fleeing or falling or any of the frenetic scenes that purge my mind of pandemic news, only to be refilled day after quarantine day. Fingers fumbling to find the hour, knowing it will be the quiet time when you can stretch your ears for miles, only to find more silence and the occasional whistle of wind. Staring into the black, I try unsuccessfully the tricks of sleep, counting sheep and rhythmic breathing until I think of you standing by the ocean, buffeted by a stiff eastward, salt scented breeze, kerchief sheltered from the crispness. Sometimes you have to just turn off the news, you say, and listen to nothing. The distinct voice of rippling waves whispering behind you. I let loose of the swirling thoughts that race my heart and exhaust my mind, and imagine your voice in the crashing waves and stepping out under a new moon onto sand, slipping off my shoes and socks to feel my way across the beach. I let the darkness wrap around me between the moonless sky and blue-black water, holding me tight and soaking up the still swirling thoughts until sky, sea, and stillness take me away. The stress dreams are silenced for now, sleep taking hold and insomniac rustling subsided, slipping back into darkness until their inevitable return.
Oh, I love the imagery. I wish I was there and I get to look out at all the white snow. Lovely. So lovely.
Very nice. Yep. Very nice.
All right, Karen, let's hear your next one. Oh,
Well,
before I have you go, Karen, I wanted just to say a couple of people are in the comments. Jude is saying, great job, everyone. And then Karen, someone named Daniel says, hi, Karen. So do you know who Daniel is?
I know a couple of Daniels.
Okay.
I don't want to embarrass them by revealing who it might be, but anyway, hi back, Daniel.
All right, sorry about that interruption, but I just wanted to acknowledge our people who are the people who are with us tonight. Go ahead, Karen.
It's good. This poem I actually wrote. I'm in another marriage now, and I've been married to my husband for 23 years. So, and we're old people. So for those of you that, and maybe Christopher, this is for you, for people who are not in love right now, you just have to keep looking. And you are a different person as you go through the different chapters of your life. And who might have been the right person for you when you were younger is not necessarily the right person for you as you get older. So this is called What I Wish as We Grow Old. We did not meet when we were young. No hot pots sizzling, no sparks flying, no houses to build, no children to raise, just time to pass. Quiet dependence, company, familiar footsteps at the door, toolbox stocked with experience, subdued surprise. A road that winds down gentle hills, leafy forests, cleansing breezes. Contemplation, not disagreement. Nods of assent, of recognition. Wonder and appreciation for all fortune, peace, and beauty. Silent worship, gratitude for connection and for you.
I like that, Karen. I, of course, have a question. Can you tell me, is it easier being in love later on in life than it was when you were younger? Because I know when you were younger, you had the family and other things that both of you guys had to balance. Tell me about that contrast.
Well, the difference is certainly that you're not as driven by chemistry. You know, that is the good news and bad news of falling in love when you're young, is you can't tell what's hormones and what's a real, you can't. I mean, it's, you know, we've all had that feeling, and you can't distinguish what are the biological connection you might feel towards someone or the physical attraction that you feel towards someone, which is a very, very exciting, and I don't want to denigrate it by any means, but it doesn't last. It just doesn't. And I think that that's one of the things that as you get older, you're looking for something different. The other thing that happens as you get older, you know who you are. So you don't, and it helps that you don't have all the pressures that you have when you're young. You know, your career is established, hopefully. You don't have major financial worries. Your kids, if you've had kids, they're up and grown and out of the house and dealing with their own lives. And so everything that you're doing is building experiences together that are just about the two of you and what you can share together. And I think that's also becomes clear, and I see this with many of my friends who are older. Oftentimes there are health issues that start to be part of the relationship. And that's when you really find out, I think, what love is. And that is if you're able to care for somebody and really be concerned about them when they may not be as healthy as they were when you were younger. So yeah, so that's, but don't give up. Don't give up on love. Love is there no matter how old you are. One just short thing about that, my mother passed away when she was 70. My dad was 75. When he was 80, he met another woman. They were married for 10 years before he passed away, and they had a fabulous marriage, a wonderful, wonderful marriage. So don't give up on love.
That's a great story. Great story. All right, Carol.
Well, once again, I'm talking about a totally different kind of love. The love of a grandparent for a grandchild. And when my first grandchild was born 7 years ago, I was taking a poetry course, and our assignment was to write a poem using an established form. And I chose the Elizabethan sonnet. And I decided, oh, I'm going to write this about my granddaughter. And I wound up having a whole lot of fun with it, and Shakespeare and the living daylights out of it. So it's 14 lines of iambic pentameter and one classical reference. So if you're not familiar with Artemis, she is the Greek goddess of the hunt. So this is called Aria May. In gentle spring her coming was foretold. Our son's good wife would bear a female child. Midst January's bitter, biting cold would she arrive, soft, rosy pink, and mild. The force of nature born that winter's night, with raven hair and eyes of charcoal gray, as Artemis, with wild game in her sight, drew golden bow upon her unwary prey. Then from her throat she loosed a feral wail, and yet it sounded music to my ears. Whate'er her aims, I would not see them fail. This oath I swore to honor o'er the years. Oh, tiny, fearsome huntress of my heart, unstring thy bow. I've been thine from the start.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you.
I love that. And it's also just such a great example of this spectrum of poetry that hopefully we're conveying, because we all have different styles, or we use different styles for different things we want to say. And yeah, because the two poems you read were so different in form, because you find, in many cases, you find the form for the poem that you've written. Some poets, they start the other way around. Like you decided you're going to do a sonnet. Many times poems start one way, and then you realize, nope, that's not the right form for that poem, and the form sort of reveals itself. So cool.
Most of my poetry doesn't rhyme, but anyway, but something like you're right. Sometimes it just has to. The way it's going to work. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, how often do you guys play around with form? I know for myself that makes it more challenging for me. So, I have to make myself write in a certain form sometimes. But if I had my way, I would just do free verse. What about you all?
Yeah,
I confess, I do free verse most of the time. If I write a poem for my granddaughter, though, I tend to rhyme them, because I get all my Shel Silverstein on, and
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. I like free verse too, and I find rhyming very difficult, but I will say it helps a lot to be in a writer's group, because I'm in one, and that is just for poets, and we challenge ourselves to try different forms. It's not a requirement, but it's a good challenge. And I have learned in that process to craft some poems that I probably never would have attempted otherwise.
I'm totally a free verse person, and I just like the liberty, the freedom that you have with that. But I'll challenge myself every now and then to write a poem of some kind of form, maybe a haiku or something like that. But I'm at my best when I can craft it free verse, and then make it do what it do.
Right.
Yeah, I find the structure within a poem usually some more free verse, and then find some structure or pattern. But I had one poem that I was determined to write it in with a very strict 3 lines, same syllable pattern and a rhyming pattern, and I finished it, and it just wasn't working. It just wasn't the right form. And then I totally threw it out, rewrote it as a screenplay, a prose poem broken up into 9 scenes. So it's Normandy in 9 scenes, and it's so much better. Oh my goodness. It's what the story needed. It's what the poem needed, what the story needed. And I've had other poems where I totally had them very structured, and then it just wasn't working, and I tossed it out and recrafted it completely. So ultimately the poem wins. Whatever the poem's reality is going to win in the end.
I will say that when I've had to write in a particular structure, I've gained so much appreciation, particularly for Shakespeare, because not only the structure of not only his plays, but also his sonnets, but the ability to convey images in a form. is not an easy task. And I think all those writers, you know, pre 20th century, where it was more common to follow a specific kind of form, they worked hard. They worked hard to do what they were doing.
Now, Christopher, I know with you being a spoken word artist, sometimes you write you write poems that are specifically for the stage. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, you know, as soon as I start, or even as soon as I come up with a title for something, I know it's for the stage because having that experience, and it's been 20 years plus at the least of performance poetry for me. So having something to say in a manner that it needs to be performed or recited in a way that is very rhythmic and has a nice pace to it has really worked for me. There's a piece I have called Word Warrior that I'm explaining that, yeah, I'm a warrior with words, and it's specifically completely a stage piece, but I wrote it to perform and to win or be, you know, or challenge a poetry slam. So those pieces, especially the poetry slam pieces, those, you know, that you're writing for the stage and really not the page, and to convey a message that folks can think about or take home with them. So yeah.
I like that, writing for the stage versus the page. All right, Katsa, it's your turn.
This next poem I have is the complete opposite of love. It's heartbreak. And I wrote this one a couple of years ago when I was trying to just come to terms with what happened. I got some really bad news at the doctor, and I just wanted to like capture that vulnerable moment that I had, just trying to like take everything in, but also like trying to grieve at the same time. So this one's an untitled one that just kind of reflects how I felt. How does one express pain when the sadness cannot even be recognized by their brain? When it goes beyond I'm hurt and there's nothing to ground you but the dirt. When words fail to express the weep that I only so desperately want relief. I stand in silence as the world comes to a stop and nothing around me moves but the clock. The telltale sign of the heart shattering to pieces is when the bereavement comes in breaths of disbelief. I stand alone in silence, failing to weep. I only so desperately want relief.
Oh, that is pretty sad. But
Yeah.
I'm glad, like I said earlier, you made it through that time.
Yeah.
Quentin, did you have something to say? I hear you.
No, I agree. That was a very unique way to put that, and to, you know, to just like grab a hold of your feelings, and, you know, in this essence, like you just pull them out of your heart to put them age, you know, it's so powerful.
Great job, Katsa. All right, Quentin, what's your next poem for us?
My next poem centers on the love we have for our pets. I wrote this poem, I think it was sometime in the fall of last year. My full-time job is as an animal control officer, so I'm always working with animals on a day-to-day basis. And so for some reason, it just popped into my head. I had seen a Chihuahua earlier that day, and I just started pounding out rhythms in my head and rhymes. And so I wrote this poem, and then later on, I shared it with somebody who was a volunteer at our shelter, who I knew was a very, Chihuahuas are her life. Those are her types of dogs. And she got back to me just momentarily because she had just had to euthanize, or well, actually, her oldest Chihuahua died in her arms. And this poem like just captured, you know, she was in that dark space of having lost a pet, but this brought happiness to her heart. And I don't know, maybe there was just something in the universe that communicated that in my direction, and made this poem happen to, you know, bring her a smile, because she said it was the first time that she had had a smile on her face or a happy thought for quite some time. So this poem is called I'm a Chihuahua. With 4 tiny feet and 2 perky ears, I bark at the bell because I have nothing to fear. I'm a Chihuahua. With long hair and short and colors galore, I hold my head high because me you adore. I'm a Chihuahua. The world's smallest dog from south of the border. I'm sassy and happy and make your heart warmer. I'm a Chihuahua.
That's great.
Oh,
Adorable.
yeah.
I think we played that on Poetically Yours one time.
Yes, we did.
And I'm trying to figure out what music did I put to that. I have to go back and listen to it. I'm a Chihuahua. That's very catchy. I hope I don't
Yeah.
think that tonight. I'm a
Yeah,
Chihuahua.
really.
Hope I don't dream about a Chihuahua tonight. The way my brain works, it might show up. Oh my goodness.
Very
All right.
short and succinct, and yeah, to the point.
Yeah.
But you
And that
really captured the essence of that little dog, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
and what you were saying, Quentin, about how she said she hadn't smiled in a long time, that's a reminder of how powerful poetry can be. You know, when I write a lot of times, I write for other people. And I know I have been at certain events where I'll read a poem and I remember this one particular young man came and said that was about me. And the poem I was reading, it was a love poem and it was about some hurt I went through being the female. But to hear a guy come and say, "Oh, I experienced that too," it was different. It was like, okay, we're all going through this. We're all in this together. So it's powerful to know that we can kind of help people with our poetry.
Mhm.
I guess one of the other things that I found, it's not incidentally, it's purposely actually. I've written a series of poems now as loved ones have passed away, and now it's become a thing where when somebody passes away, I write a poem in memoriam to try to capture the spirit of that person, their essence, their life's work. And it can be quite challenging. The closer you know that person, the easier it is to find material. My uncle recently passed away, and the family, reached out to me to, make sure you come up with a poem for Uncle Alton. And I struggled with it for a couple of weeks until I just came across a couple of pictures when we were cleaning his house, and it all just kind of found me. The poem found me, and I was able to bring it forward and pay tribute to him and read it at his funeral. And so a lot of times I write these for people that, I just know as friends, but to know that you can, I guess, I don't know, immortalize their loved one in some way to capture their spirit. Mm-hmm. People have said it really just really, they're so grateful and so thankful to have those words and to be able to have it printed out, put it on their Facebook page, something like that, so that everybody can celebrate that person's life.
Yeah.
I had a very similar experience over the holidays. Unfortunately, my father-in-law passed away about a week after Christmas, and my wife asked me to write a poem for the in memoriam, and and it would had to be done very quickly in under a week. And then he's Italian, immigrated from Italy to Canada, and he was in his tiny town in Italy. They ring the bells of the church with a special song in recognition of people who passed away from that town, and that was the light bulb. They're ringing the bells for Franco was the, and I knew with that, and I think you do this in a lot of poems. You have this anchor idea, and then it just, you build on top of that. And then I managed to get it. I got up in a very short period of time. I got a professional translator to translate it into Italian, so my mother-in-law would fully appreciate it. And then yes, reading it. Whew, those are tough poems to read. You almost have to separate yourself and pretend you're reading it about someone you don't know just to get through it, and not have an introvert. But it's, yeah, what you said, Quentin, is so true, that people recognize that you took time. That's the thing I think they really value, is you took the time to be thoughtful. And going back to the greeting card thing, greeting cards are easy. You just go to a store and buy one. Writing a poem is work.
Yes.
And that, yeah.
Yeah,
Labor of love.
I can relate. I know I just did one for my granny. She was 96. She passed in November, and they're looking at me like, "Oh, you got the poem?" And I'm like, I guess, but all I had to do was think of one moment in time, and it came to me. And what was so refreshing is, as I'm saying the poem, my brother chimed in. He had never heard the poem, but because I was talking about some real life stuff, he chimed in and like repeated or said my next line.
Wow.
He knew what I was going to say because that's just how close we were. All right, so enough of the sad stuff. I'm going to let Christopher take us home with his next poem.
Yeah, yeah. And life is life, right? So I've definitely written those poems where you kind of eulogizing somebody or someone. So yeah, those are the tough ones for sure. But life is life. And somebody just said poetry is work. That it is. So this poem that I'm going to share, it's about my love for words, or how somebody might be reciting words or have written words. But this particular poem helped me fall in love with words even more. So this is entitled "Getting Intimate with Your Words." Your words make love to me. When I become fused, settled into your wordplay, the most beautiful things serenade my soul. I feel like an innocent child, gleefully discovering the certainties of living carefree. Automatically, I want to cuddle in your grammatical chemistry and let it comfort, caress, consume, and console me. I want to lay next to your devastating diction and let it breathe softly on my neck, then whisper sweet things and smile about it in my dreams. I want to smile when I hear your spoken word harmony charming me and disarming the strength I possess, and let each and every word baptize my being and cleanse my soul like water. Because your words are wind soft aloft the clouds, sweet genuine amidst the sunshine, clever daffodils that cast spells at will. And through them I see the signs of hieroglyphics, discover all things important and intricate. Make love to my mind, you word warrior, syllable soldier, lyrical enforcer. Transform me with traditional griotic telepathy. Feed me the vital, venomous vocabulary that I need to proceed. And that's the piece.
Oh, I like that.
Lovely.
I have to ask, have you ever been in love with a poet?
No, I haven't. Not at this point. No, nah.
Well, you seem like you're hesitant about that. You're like, ah.
Yeah, because I've been somewhere everywhere as a poet, all over the country. So trying, going through my memory as far as maybe having had been in love with somebody that was also writing poetry, but I haven't had that honor just yet. Who knows what's down the line?
So I have a friend who always tell me to stay away from those poets, and I'm
Yeah,
like, oh,
that's
what are you talking about?
Yeah, that's the advice that I would give. Stay away from poets.
Oh, you know what,
Stay
Christopher,
away
you
from
might
those
want one.
poets.
Well, no, because think about it. It's, and I think I heard this from an author whose name escapes me right now, which is the worst thing to be the family member of a writer, because everything that happens, you're going to be the subject.
Raw material. Totally.
Yeah,
It's
that's
material.
right.
Totally.
That's right.
I can understand that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, everyone, I just want to thank you. Thank you so much for spending the time to talk about love with me this week. Before we go, I want you each to tell the listeners how they can stay in contact with you. So, Chris, since you're on the screen, I'm going to start with you.
Sure, yeah. I'm always willing to have a conversation about poetry, performance poems, and that kind of thing. So I'm at Christopher D. Sims, 1M at Outlook.com is my email address. If you want to hear more of my vocal poetry, I'm at SoundCloud.com/UNIVERSOULOVE. And you can find me on Instagram at poet Christopher D. Sims.
Thank you, Christopher.
Mhm.
Quentin, what would you like to share with our listeners?
Well, you can see a lot of the things that I write at the Aurora Poet Laureate Facebook page. I'm on a regular rotation there. I'm going to type in my email address here. I can be reached at Goroka, GOROKAPNG at gmail.com. That's kind of lengthy and mixed up, but that is actually the name of the town I was born in Papua New Guinea.
Wow.
And if people want to hear more about that story, Quentin's story, just go to WNIJ.org. His bio is there and it tells you about him growing up in in New Guinea. All right. So next I want to ask Casca. I'm mixing up your name. Can't talk. Katza. What do you have for our listeners? Sorry about that.
It's okay. I get that a lot. I'm trying to get published on Amazon Kindle right now, but until then, if you ever want to shoot me an email, my email is coffee992@icloud.com. I'd love to get some feedback from people that are not my family, or if you just want to share poetry, I'm always open to hearing other poems that people have written as well.
Thank you, Katza. All right. Carol, how can people keep up with you?
I'm on Facebook, and you could Facebook message me if you want to have a discussion about poetry. Every once in a while I throw one of my poems on Facebook, though not very often. I'm on Instagram too. And on the fourth Wednesday of every month, I'm usually doing the writers open mic at Stage Left Cafe in Woodstock.
Nice.
The home of the atrocious poets. Woodstock, Illinois. All right, Karen.
You can find me on the Aurora Poet Laureate Facebook page, as Quentin pointed out. I post a poem there every day, every morning, from a writer in the region. And you can send me work at my email address, which is kfc16@sbcglobal.net.
Thank you, Karen. And last but not least, how about you, James?
So a bunch of ways. You could just Google my name, James Morehead, Morehead with one O, and you'll see lots of stuff about me. You can also go to viewlesswings.com. Viewless Wings is a Keats reference, and it's the name of an anthology I did for my grade 10 creative writing class called Viewless Wings, and miraculously the domain was available. So viewlesswings.com, or you can go to James Morehead, just first name, last name.com, just make sure it's one O. Or you can go buy my book, Canvas, my debut book, which for those in the seeing video, I don't know who they are. The cover is on my wall, the original artwork. So it's amazing. So, and I do a podcast where I interview some incredible poets. I also accept submissions from poets, and then once a month I do a compilation of the best into a little mini podcast. And then I'm having an open call for poetry for the city of Dublin. I'm organizing a poetry walk for the month of April, National Poetry Month. So go to viewlesswings.com, free to submit, no cost for the submission, and there's a submission link in the menu. So lots of different things happening, and thank you so much for pulling this together. Totally enjoyed it.
No problem at all. Now, people who are interested in submitting, do they have to live near that area?
No,
Because I know you're in California, so from anywhere. Okay.
Yeah, and those will be probably up to 20 businesses will have a poem each displayed in their storefront for an entire month. There will be a map of, and I modeled this after a town in Vermont that did something similar. And then the best of the best will get a chance to read their poem on a podcast episode.
Oh.
That's exciting.
Yeah, so I hope everyone submit and previously published poems are acceptable. I really just want the quality to be terrific as long as you have the rights to the poem.
Yeah, I submitted one today, so.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Yay.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to submit.
Perfect. No, that would be wonderful. Just has to fit on one page. That's another constraint because I have to make sure it'll fit in a storefront window. So that's like there's some little constraints and be family friendly, which I'm obviously so because it's public, public space. So the city, I don't want to get in trouble with the city of Dublin.
Yeah, it's good to know that other cities are doing that. I know in Aurora we do something like that, but I don't see Karen, so she'll have to tell us about it next time.